As Britons struggle with the cost of living crisis, it's surprising to note the wholesale energy prices are now, in many cases, lower than they were before Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine. So why on earth are we still paying through the nose to heat our homes and switch on the kettle? And hey, watch GB News on a flat screen telly. Well, to discuss this, I'm delighted to welcome, formerly from the Office for National Statistics, a man who crunches the numbers so you don't have to, political and economic commentator Jamie Jenkins. Hi, Jamie.
Hi, Mark. You good?
Very well. Great to have you in the studio. So give us a sense of the cost of wholesale energy prices and why they're not feeding through into our bills.
Yeah, well, it's a complex picture, obviously. So remember now, we look at the energy prices we're paying. It's basically, we've got a government set price. Ofgem is setting the price. Remember a few years ago, you'd be looking to switch to a better deal. It's pretty much one national rate out there at the moment. And the way Ofgem set that rate is they will track the wholesale price for about a 6-month period. So when we look at the rate that we're paying at the moment, that actually comes before this kind of high spike that we've seen over the winter. And remember now that energy prices are going to go up again in April because they'll be reflecting some of the higher prices that we got at the moment. Now, the bad news, because you've touched upon the wholesale gas prices coming down, or the bad news for those watching now, is the fact that when you think of where we are at the moment, the government is actually topping up our energy bills. So what it means is that when we look at the wholesale price coming down, when we get to April, it'll mean the government will save money. Ultimately, it's taxpayers' money anyway, but it won't feed through to bills. It might be towards the back end of the year when we start seeing the energy bills coming below what we're paying.
Because government support for people's bills, household energy bills, stops in April.
Well, they're going to still support a little bit of it, but it's going to be going up about 20% on what you're paying now. So the price cap will still probably be kind of what the government will be topping up, but the amount the government will pay will come down. Now, the problem we've got here, Mark, is the fact that over the last 40 years, the UK government has sleptwalked itself with the lack of energy security. And if you go back 40 years ago, most of our energy came from coal. And interestingly, if you go back 20 years ago, we produced as a nation about 30% more electricity than what we produce now. Now, about a third of that come from coal, about a third of that come from gas, and most of the rest of it come from nuclear. And what we've seen is this huge move away from coal, a large reliance on gas, and also not just gas that we had domestically. So 20 years ago, it would all come from the UK. Now, we import more gas than what we use domestically. The problem, that means we've got huge prices, and renewables aren't fixing the problem because the renewable cost, ironically, is set by the gas price. So we are being basically screwed across the country with the way the system's set up.
And to what extent is net zero adding to the cost of our bills, do you think?
And, well, you can't divorce the fact, Mark, that with gas being seen kind of as a clean energy compared to coal, when you have these COP climate agreements that go on every year, we've got more and more countries now across the world trying to buy gas on the world stage. And then that increases the demand for gas, which then pushes the price up for gas. And also, as I've just said, the way you set the gas prices are driving the renewable prices. We've got this issue, Mark, that a few weeks back with that big coal spell in the UK, we also had a wind drought at the same time. So that meant we were turning the gas right on because there wasn't enough wind and there was no solar in the evening. So net zero and this big shift over the last 30 years is a big factor in why energy prices are so high. And the sad thing is some people are dying out there because they're afraid to put the heating on.
What about the massive profits from these energy companies? I mean, is that an example of corruption? Are we being swindled?
Well, I've been calling this the great energy robbery, because in 2019, as a nation, you take all the businesses, kind of all the public services and all the households, we spent about 40 billion across the whole year on our energy. Fast forward to 2022, that's 190 billion pounds. So that's 150 billion pound would fund the whole NHS for a year. You think of all those operations, we're going to pay to get things done. Most of that is like a wealth transfer to these foreign energy companies. Now, we've had Shell today coming out with their record profits, and people are saying, oh, well, we could tax them more, but only 5% of the Shell kind of money that they're talking about, their revenues, are from the UK. So you can't tax the other 95%. And the strange thing of what Shell's been doing as well is they haven't been paying much tax because they can offset some of the profits that they get by de-investing in the North Sea or kind of decommissioning kind of oil fields and gas fields. So we're not getting much money in at all. And that's the big problem when you've got all this foreign reliance.
And this windfall tax could be counterproductive if it means that energy companies don't explore for potential oil and gas fields on our shores.
And that's what we're going to see. We're going to see, oh, well, the tax is too high in the UK. Let's go and reduce our kind of exploration in the North Sea. What that means then is you've got to import more gas. And one of the winners, I suppose, over the last few years has been the US. They're importing more gas to the UK, a lot of it fracked. And what we got in this country, the UK, are banning fracking. It just doesn't make any sense.
So your prediction is that our energy bills won't correct downwards anytime soon?
I don't think they're coming down anytime soon. They will go up. It's already baked in to go up about 20% in April. Hopefully, they'll come back down a little bit more. But remember, we're never going to be going back to what we were paying pre-pandemic. And we've baked in basically this new... And ironically, the huge surge in the gas prices is the only thing that's made renewables actually look cheap in the long term.
The government have, the Bank of England have raised interest rates again today in order to tackle inflation. Is it your view that inflation has more or less peaked, and is it coming down?
Yeah, and all of it is linked to the energy price, the inflation. So the big driver of inflation over the last year has been the energy prices. About 3/4 of all the inflation in the country has come from energy, has come from the transport costs, and a bit from food as well. Now, because energy prices aren't going to go up as much this year as what they went up last year, and as you say, the wholesale price is coming down, so hopefully this year they'll start coming down. When you compare year-on-year prices of energy, they will be not as high as going up as last year, so that means that inflation will come down. It's why I'm quite critical of Rishi Sunak and Jeremy Hunt saying the government policy is we've got plans to halve inflation. If they do absolutely nothing, Mark, inflation will halve. So it's not a government policy that's going to do this. It's just a correction the way the data is calculated.
Do they have a point that yielding to public sector wage demands could be inflationary, though?
That is a good point, because obviously if they yield and go in and say, right, we will give you 10, 11% pay increases, what that means is that they'll have to find the money for that, so potentially they'd have to tax it. And if it goes to the private sector, if they start having to follow the public sector because one sector will influence the other, that might mean then that companies will put prices up because of the fact that wages are going up. So we've got to ride this out. If we don't get these double-digit wage increases, that should see us through the best part of inflation. And I think we've peaked, and that's the good news for this year.
As always, you've done your homework. Jamie Jenkins, great to see you in the studio. Speak soon. Jamie Jenkins there, formerly of the Office for National Statistics. Do check out his excellent Twitter feed, Jamie Jenkins. Stats Jamie is how you can find him. Well worth a read.